So, two parts to this sermon. Part number one, Psalm 146 is my favorite psalm, so I have to just mention that. And a number of years ago, I was going into the grocery store, and someone was around an election season, and someone was out registering voters, and I had just moved, and I thought I better register. So she said, well, what political party do you belong to? And I said, well, the Psalm 146 party. And she looked at me like, okay. And I was like, yeah, don't put your trust in rulers and kings. But put your trust in the Lord, who lifts up the lowly and feeds the hungry. And I got registered for whatever party she wanted me to be registered for, and I had to go change that. But anyway, I think that's a great psalm to meditate on during this season. But I also wanted to talk about the gospel. So Jesus is traveling outside of Israel, outside of the part of Palestine that he grew up in and lived in. He's up north of that in this place called Tyre, and you probably noticed in the service leaflet it's not tire like on your car tire, it's Tyre. So I thought I would. I don't actually have one of these, so I had to print a picture. This is a particular kind of snail that lives on the Mediterranean coast and in the Mediterranean around Tyre. And it was in ancient times, and even today, actually, you can YouTube this of people making. They make this dye out of the shell of this snail, and it's very rare, and it's very, very, very labor intensive. You have to collect hundreds and hundreds of these shells in order to get enough dye to make just one skein of yarn or thread or whatever. And so, and it was this this deep, beautiful purple color, right? And so you know that purple is the color associated with royalty, right? And the reason is because in the ancient world, purple was the hardest textile to dye, and it was this dye that made purple dye. And so only the very richest of the richest of the richest could afford this purple dye because it was so hard to make. So Tyre was a very, very lucrative and wealthy city. The people there who were Gentiles, they were, you saw that the woman that Jesus is talking to, she's called Syro-Phoenician, right? So Tyre is up actually in modern-day Syria, but in that area, and the woman was of Phoenician origin, and the Phoenicians and the Israelites never got along, right? The Phoenicians, some of their ancestors you might know in the Old Testament as the Philistines. They're like seafaring people. They were out collecting seashells, and the Israelites were in the desert because they don't like the ocean, right? Kind of like me. I don't like the ocean. So anyway, no, I love the ocean. But anyway, so Jesus is in this area that is not his own, and he is approached by this woman who is a very, very, very different background, socioeconomically and ethnically, all of these differences, right? She was probably far, far wealthier than Jesus ever was in his life, than anybody that Jesus knew, most likely, because Tyre was such a wealthy area. And the archaeology of Tyre is this giant Roman city, the biggest amphitheater in the whole area, all of these beautiful buildings, right? The archaeology of Nazareth, where Jesus is from, is about 5 or 6 caves, and that was the village of Nazareth. Were these caves? So this is an encounter between very, very different people, socioeconomically and ethnically. And this woman, though, comes to Jesus out of faith and asks Jesus to heal her little daughter. And Jesus has this pretty shocking exchange with her, right? he says, sorry, but we have to feed the children before the dogs get any food. And she responds right away. She had it ready to go. She says, well, even the dogs under the table get the crumbs. And so immediately that impressed Jesus, right? Which is an interesting dynamic in the first place. So we have this dynamic where Jesus seems to be pretty rude to her, right? Well, we also have this can you imagine impressing God? Or impressing the Son of God? Jesus is impressed by the faith of this woman. And we know from the version of this story in Matthew that Jesus, it says it, he's impressed by her faith. So we have this socioeconomic thing, right, where their meeting is unequal, the meeting is unequal, and we have this, that situation is one in which the people in Galilee would have been receiving the crumbs from Tyre, right? There's some indication that Jesus and Joseph, right, who were carpenters, they probably would have had to travel far away to these Roman cities in order to get work, because that was the only work that there was. These people were subsisting on the crumbs of the Roman Empire and the crumbs of these wealthy Gentile people around them. And so when Jesus flips that script a little bit and does this thing about the children and the crumbs, but the woman's faith cuts through all of that difference, and Jesus is able to heal her. So this is one of those stories that really makes us think, right? It really is a difficult story to hear and a difficult story to understand. But the thing that I want you to get out of it is that your faith opens up these possibilities. Your faith allows communication, allows healing across differences. Your faith can open up ways of interacting with people who are very different than you. Your faith can open up your own heart so that you can see the image of God in people who are very different than you. And so this is, I think, a story about that. And as we go into this season, this election cycle, and everything going on in the world, and as we're meditating on Psalm 146, it is our faith that is going to open up these avenues of understanding, these avenues of unity, these avenues of mercy in a time when people would like to close those avenues. People would like to build up walls, and it's our faith that tears those walls down. Amen.